Durante di su estadía, nos por hacer a conocer con Lynn Braker, eta embajador para National Down Syndrome Society y camina con nosotros por hacer conocer lo que trata el trabajo que desplegar especialmente para emocionar que tiene Down Syndrome. Y para nos por haya su sostén, o mejor bisa el sostén de la organización aquí, ahora nos está cinta con él para nos por conocer más mejor lo que cuta el trabajo que nanta desplegar ahora aquí. Y camina con Aruba, probablemente por haya asistencia necesario. Pues nos está papiando que nan de Lynn Braker, está embajador para el National Down Syndrome Society. We would like to know more about this organization. What can you tell us about it?
The National Down Syndrome Society in the United States works for, they're a human rights organization for people with Down syndrome. So I live in Lexington, Kentucky, and I represent the state of Kentucky. We legislate for people's issues and rights in the United States, and we work as an organization to help educate one another and further just the research and the education of people in the United States and beyond about Down syndrome.
So what can you tell us about the studies that had been done?
There's a lot of studies, but the one thing that we know is that when people, and this is my son Anderson, by the way,
okay.
He's 4.5, and what we know is when we include people in our society, a full inclusion, that people with Down syndrome are just like you and I. They can do anything. In the United States, people with Down syndrome go to college, they get driver's licenses, they get jobs, they live, they live like you and I on their own independently. People get married. There really is no difference. And so as we include people more often, we learn that they are more like us than they are different.
When you say about inclusion,
yes,
what can we understand under inclusion?
So in the United States, children with Down syndrome go to school right next to a child who is what we would refer to as typical, someone who does not have a special need. And we've adapted classroom studies. We understand the way that they perceive things and understand things and how they learn and adapt. And the teachers in the United States are educated in that way. And they help the students just like they would any other student.
So the teachers are prepared?
Correct. The teachers are prepared. They learn at college how to teach people with special needs. And the more we understand and share information, the greater that learning can be.
You have only one teacher in the classroom, or you have two teachers in the classroom that have to share the responsibility? Typically
there is one teacher, and there may be aides. There may be what are called paras in the school system that will help assist a person with Down syndrome. But as an example, my son Anderson goes to a school called Lexington Hearing and Speech in Lexington, Kentucky, and we had someone that went to school with him, but they made her leave because they said he's just like all the other kids and he doesn't need her and he can learn just right along with them. And you'd be surprised, the other children actually learn how to help that individual learn better as well.
They are encouraged or motivated
yes.
to help kids with special needs.
They are motivated and encouraged.
I'm talking about the typical kids.
Yes, typical kids. The typical kids in our school systems, they actually, they love people with Down syndrome. They accept them, they understand that they're very special and loving and that they have great gifts. In fact, I'll tell you a little story which is kind of interesting.
Okay.
I met a couple that have a child with Down syndrome who is nearly in her 50s now in Kentucky. And they are in their late 80s, and they said, this child has brought us so much joy in our life, and one of the things that she's helped us with is that she has this unbelievable memory. And so while their memories, as they get older, are failing them, this person helps them remember everything.
Okay.
So, people just like you and I, everyone has special gifts and talents, and people with Down syndrome have a 1,000,001 gifts and talents.
We have these kids with special needs
yes.
that are in one school, but
right.
a special school,
right.
not a typical school.
Right.
Okay, and we have these kids with Down syndrome kids with autism, kids with special needs, all in one classroom. What do you think about this?
I think that it's a lot of people in one place that have different abilities, and so it's hard to focus in on one child that may need that assistance. When you spread it out and you encourage inclusion, people adapt and overcome more easily, I believe.
Okay.
So focusing all of your attention on a special group together makes it difficult to understand what each person is maybe capable of. And it's a lot to focus on, whereas if you have one person, amongst 12, it's different.
I can understand that, for example, your son, Anderson, and the other kids that are in a typical school are getting their education from a typical teacher, typical students that are helping them, and apparently they know, they have the capability to study.
Yes.
They have the capability to become a professional.
Definitely.
Here in Aruba, if they're in a special school with kids with special needs, do you think they can become professional this way?
I would have to go into your school system to really see, but in my gut tells me no, because it's like any of us. If you don't show me the world, how am I supposed to know what the world has for me? If you put me with other people, I learn to be like you. So I think it's really important to show them the world. And the other thing is, in the United States, we have specific associations, and we share information, and we educate the teachers as well as parents of people with Down syndrome on their capabilities. So in the United States, we have groups and teams of teachers that are all, and including therapists, that are all responsible for ensuring the success of a person with Down syndrome. And we meet quarterly as in the public school systems, and we have goals and expectations, and the teachers are expected to ensure that the child meets those goals.
So that's what your organization is?
That's the public school system in the United States. That's part of the laws and regulations of the United States to ensure that children get a fair and equal education, no matter what their special need might be.
Is it proven that probably a kid with special need will be jeopardizing a kid with that's typical in their studies, or when they're getting
it's proven that people grow and become greater human beings with a lot more compassion and capabilities if they are commingled with people who are different from them.
Okay.
Similar to the days when there may have been separation between blacks and whites. There's only been greatness coming from bringing those two worlds together.
There's only one school for kids with special needs, and probably these kids are there because probably they will be jeopardizing a typical kid to get...
Time and time again, I have heard from parents of typical children who are so glad that Anderson is in their classroom.
Oh, okay.
There's one little girl in particular, she's the same age as Anderson, and she has befriended him, and she holds his hand to the playground, and she helps him. And she would never, how would she have ever had that experience of having compassion for another human being who may be a little bit slower than her or need some assistance? So it's growing people. And like, this island is full of really wonderful, lovely people who should be opening up their hearts to people with Down syndrome, because you can learn a lot from them too.
Compassion is what helped these kids with special needs to progress in life?
Sure. Yes.
Compassion from whom?
From everyone. From every group of individual.
Also teachers.
And back in the day in the United States, in the 1950s, people with Down syndrome were put in cages. Now they are included in every part of the world, and they're able to do anything. And like, we know people who are 18 years old with Down syndrome who run their own businesses. Like, as I mentioned, they live on their own. They have families. They do all the same things that we do. So it was eye-opening to me. I've been coming to this island for 22 years and loving the people and the culture and the experience, and I was very shocked to learn that people with Down syndrome are being put into a category. It's so shocking to me because it's like the 1950s in the United States. Yeah, they must be included. They must.
Okay, aqui rato nos lo sigi conversar con Lynn Braker, que por cierto ta embajador de National Down Syndrome Society na América. Din a seguinte parte nos lo sigi conversar com ele para sobre é importante para nós por essa como nós por ter esse cambio din o sistema educacional para emocionar que tem Down syndrome. Aqui rato din Bang Papia. Como nós por cambiar o sistema de educação para nós mencionar que tem Down syndrome. Essa aqui está mais importante para sobre na América, mas nós por escutar rato passar for de Lynn Braker, tá que mencionar aqui tá incluir dentro do sistema de educação, não tá junto com todo outro mencionar normal, se nós por visa assim. Já que nós estamos papiando que não de mencionar com Down syndrome e caminha com mencionar de Down syndrome tem sistema de educação caminha com não tá haya less, não tá sinha, não tá haya preparação junto com todo outro mencionar que tá normal. Hasta não tá word incluído em sistema de educação de college que nós por considerar como HAVO, VWO, hasta universidade. De como nós temos sistema de educação que está assim diferente. Well, essa aqui é o que nós também trata na última parte com Lynn Braker e caminho que nós por escutar o que está seu conselho, como nós podemos esse cambio no sistema educacional para emocionar com Down syndrome. Lynn, how can we change the educational system that we can have these kids with Down syndrome included?
I think one of the things that you could do is, I think I mentioned to you, we have a great educational video that shows children with Down syndrome and how they're just like you and I. But I think educating everyone on this island more and having an open mind and letting themselves learn that people are absolutely no different. But the United States has resources that can be shared with Aruba on how to create inclusive programs for children. And it just takes one person to make a difference.
So what do you think that has to be changed, or how can we change the educational system? Does the teacher need a special training? Yes. Or what can be done?
Yes, I think that you could start with smaller children, and the resources can be shared. There are, and in fact, in the UK, their research on education is phenomenal, and we share resources with them and take their information and apply it to the school systems for people with Down syndrome in the United States. So partnering with other countries and then training your teachers, but you could do it yourself. It can be done what we would refer to as great grassroots. You could learn it yourself, and then you could easily share it. In the United States, in the organization that I'm a part of, every month we get together as parents and with the children, and we have one person who monitors the education and shares with us how we can help our children learn. And it seems to work very, very well.
Do you need two teachers in a classroom, or one teacher can handle a typical kid and a kid with Down syndrome?
I think it depends on your class sizes. I don't know how large your classroom sizes are.
How large are the class sizes in the United States?
They would probably be, in an elementary school, maybe like 12 or 15 to a classroom.
That's the important.
Yeah, the smaller the class size, the easier it is. But it takes in your experiences, you probably would need to go through just experimenting with it. putting someone into a typical classroom from a
Okay.
very early age. You know, Anderson has been in a typical classroom with kids since he was 18 months old.
Okay.
So
and
just flowing with them.
that's
And no one has had any special training to teach him any differently. And he's learned. He's 4.5. He can count to 15. He says the alphabet. He speaks. I mean, just like any other child. And the thing that that I learned early on from other parents is that people with Down syndrome, the difference is really that they just learn at a slower pace than you and I. It's
That's
not that
right.
they cannot learn. They
Okay.
just learn at a slower pace and things happen later. So they crawl later and they walk later, but they walk and they crawl and they
Okay.
talk later. But even in the United States, I mean, we have a wonderful representative that has Down syndrome that's worked inside the White House.
Okay.
I mean, so yes, just I think what the purpose for me to be here with you is to share that people on Aruba need to get outside of what their thinking has been in the past and expect that a person with Down syndrome is the same and talk to them the same way and interact with them the same way and teach them the same way and see what happens.
As you said before, kids with Down syndrome, they go in a slower pace.
Correct.
And I think that that's the problem in our educational system, that they don't want to have a kid with Down syndrome in the same class with a typical kid because of the slow pace. Has it been proven that a typical kid has been jeopardized in their educational system, in their studies,
Not that I'm
because
aware
of
of.
the slow pace?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. But there is a way to keep on track with typical kids in a classroom and then help the other individuals. One thing that they do in the United States is they have what are called resource rooms. And for certain subjects, children are pulled out of a typical classroom and put into a resource room with a different type of teacher who understands how to specifically teach them on that subject. Because there are some subjects
Okay.
that they have more difficulty with.
Okay, it depends on the subject.
Correct. So they're not always maybe in a typical classroom all day long, but they benefit from being there. And my philosophy with my own child is, even if he doesn't pick up on every single thing in that classroom, he benefits from being there. And it may take him a little bit longer.
A kid that is not included in the educational system as a typical kid, they're not included. Can we say they're being discriminated, or?
Yes, 110%. Yes. Your government needs to put a foot down and tell the people of Aruba that these people are just the same way. Yes, it's full discrimination, 100%.
It was difficult for me to say it.
I know,
but
right. It is truly
I
discriminating
have to
against.
ask this question.
Yes.
If they're not included in the
they're
educational system as a typical kid, if they're being discriminated.
They are being discriminated against, yes. And it's shocking to me in this country because everyone here, I've never met someone that wasn't so loving and kind. So for me, I really believe that it will take time, but if people will open their minds and watch videos and read stories and learn about people in the United States and what they're doing, some of these people with Down syndrome are beyond successful of a person who's typical. So it's opening the mind, but it is definitely discrimination.
And what should we do?
You have to get your voice out. I hope that next year I can come here and we can have a walk for Down syndrome like we do in the United States. So in the US, across the country, in different states, in different cities, in the month of October, which is the month of National Down Syndrome Awareness, we create what we call buddy walk teams. And we raise money for our local associations by creating teams of people. And the whole world cheers about it. And we raise money and we educate people who are, not of the understanding. I had never met a person with Down syndrome before I had my son. And he is the light of my life. And people wait in line to meet him because he's such a special person. I think maybe the other frame of mind is that I understand that perhaps on the island of Aruba, people think families that have a child with Down syndrome are cursed. It is not a curse, it's a blessing. It is definitely a gift from God.
What can we expect from your organization as assistance so that we can get the voice out?
Sure. We hope that we will be invited and welcomed to come here. We have lots of ambassadors that would come with me, and the president of the National Down Syndrome Society, Sarah Ware, has visited other countries. In fact, I think they have some phenomenal programs in Saudi Arabia for people with Down syndrome. We've learned by partnering with other countries and helping one another. So we most certainly would come and provide any resources and help that is necessary.
Does this resource have to do with the educational system also?
Yes, we can provide exactly what we do in the U.S. so that you could mirror that same program.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very
for
welcome.
being with us.
Sure.
Shonang, Seita Lynn Braker, Bihamas, embajador pa National Down Syndrome Society na Amerika, e caminda ku eta compromete su organización pa donar-nos assistência para nós por vociferar lo que está igualdade e inclusão de nós muchanan com Down syndrome de nosso sistema educacional. Mais importante tá lo que ku conversação aqui tá de como para sobra de solo palavra e hecho ku muchanan com Down syndrome não tá incluir de nosso sistema educacional, ela visa 110% que muchanan aqui com Down syndrome tá wardo discrimina. Muchanan tá wardo discrimina den sentido aqui caminda com não tá haya educação mescos com tur outro muchanan que tá normal. Essa aqui tá mais importante para nós trece essa aqui para diante. Nós tá espera tur esnan concerni den governo, esnan kuta den departamento de enseñanza, esnan kuta envolvido com o sistema de educação, escuta bom, muchanan aqui com Down syndrome tá wardo discriminar. E nós espera que nós portinan aqui na Aruba e caminda com por wardo sostener durante caminata mundial de Down syndrome. Nós te referi aña aqui mês, de luna de março, nós esperamos para dar-nos esse sustento e caminha com não por 13 para adiante, com emocional aqui te word discriminar e caminha com não este word incluir de nosso sistema educacional mesmo com tur outro mucha normal.
Solo una gota puede vencer la sequía. ¿Y para qué llorar? ¿Para qué? Si duele una pena se olvida. ¿Para qué sufrir? ¿Para qué? Que así es la vida, hay que vivirla. escuchar en silencio